Hello and welcome to Naturally Timeless Photography. My name is Rich. In this video, I'm just going to show the difference of editing a RAW file in Luminar Neo compared to using Affinity Photo. I kind of talked about editing RAW files in my previous video with Neo, but today I saw someone editing a JPEG in Affinity Photo. And I always edit JPEGs in there. I don't really do a whole lot with RAW files. So I thought, why not give it a try? And I'm just going to keep it very basic. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm just going to show a little difference, show what one photo looks like compared to the other one. And we'll see what happens. So I'm starting off in Affinity. I'm just going to come over here to my photo, left click and hold, and then drag it into my work area, let go, and then just click somewhere in here. It may take a few seconds, then it loads. And if you look at what we got going on here, there's a lot of options for editing, but all that will disappear for the most part when we go into RAW. So there we go. As you can see, our RAW editing stuff popped up. We now can start working on our project. Now, I haven't really ever used this for editing RAW files. I may have once or twice a while ago, but it's been a while. So, bear with me. I'm just going to go through the basics. I'm not going to go through the layers or lenses or anything like that. I'm just going to stick with the basics. So, let's go to exposure, and we're going to drop that down so we could bring out a little bit more of the scenery and stuff, so the clouds and everything kind of shows up again. Let's see. I don't want to go too low with this or too high with this. We're just going to bump it up a little. 3 kind of looked good to me. It kind of brings out some of the hidden sections of the clouds and stuff and brings back some of this. Again, once we get done editing in RAW, you can always change stuff in the full program. So we're just going to go with brightness. If we brighten everything up, we're losing our detail in the clouds. So I'm going to lower that as well. Now everything's starting out at 0 value. So if you get lost though and you can't remember like where it started, you could always double tap the circle and it'll bring it back to where you started. So we're just going to go a little bit lower with that, not too much. And then we're going to drop down to enhance. Let's try contrast. See, if I go too much there, it's just everything on the bottom's going too far. So we'll just keep that maybe around 4. If you want to do singles, you could just click and do one increment at a time. Now clarity, this is kind of like sharpening. With software like this or photos like this, nature, scenery, clarifying the picture or sharpening it is awesome. When you're working with a human subject, it's better to kind of have a little bit blur. You don't want to go too clear or too sharp with the photo. But with photos like this, it's alright to go a little higher. Although if you do it too much, your photo could start looking like an HDR photo, look kind of fake. So you don't want to go too high where your photo's just looking too perfect. Now with saturation and vibrance, I don't go too high with that. It starts making the photos look artificial. So your colors are just too much. So I always just kind of barely go up at all, and I always do vibrance less than saturation. So we're going to go maybe 5, do about half. White balance I believe is good. I might use that if I'm shooting in harsh light in a building or something where it's artificial lighting. Then I might use that, but otherwise my camera adjusts pretty well for it. I always like to edit as much as I can in camera, so when I go to edit photos in the computer, there's less work to do. So anyways, we'll go here and make sure you select the box, otherwise it won't do anything. So it automatically selects it once you start moving the slider, as you can see, but otherwise, oops. Let's put that back. And we're in shadows. So this I kind of want to bump up. I like what it's doing with the foreground with the trees and everything. They were too dark, so bringing the shadows less is kind of cool. Now this is affecting the clouds more so we could adjust that, bring out some of the clouds. And it was a darker day. It was actually in the morning that I shot this, so you'd always readjust. Okay, that's looking all right. Yeah, this will bring back down a little. And now profile, that is just the camera I used. So whatever camera you're using, profile may already be in the program. It was for me. As far as the lens, I did kind of go through these and look at some of it earlier, just to kind of know what I was doing. But anyways, that's about it. Looks pretty good compared to before and after. Let's see. Okay, so there's a before, there's an after. Alright, now that we did Affinity Photo, let's see what we can do with Neo. Alright, we are now in Luminar Neo, and it's the same photo we edited in Affinity, and we're going to use the Develop tool. It's going to give us pretty much the same options that we had in the other program, maybe a few less, maybe a few more, it just depends, and also they'll be named different. So let's get started. We're just gonna do a quick edit like we did with the other one. Let's go with exposure, drop that down to try to bring out some of the details within the clouds. Smart contrast. Just going to bump it up a little bit, not too much. Highlights, I'm going to drop those down to get some more visibility in the clouds. We don't want to go too much, but do want to bring out the clouds a lot. Then we could go with shadows, bring out some more of the detail in the trees. Okay, let's try here. Okay. And after you use the raw file editing to get the most features brought back into your photo, you go into the full program and you could edit and make the photo brighter. You could do a lot more with it once you switch it into the JPEG format or whatever file that the software is actually using. And it gives you more options to do stuff. We're going to bypass the curves. We're going to go straight to color. And I'm not going to mess with the temperature or anything. That's, white balance. We didn't do that with the other one. So now we're just going to move the saturation a little bit. With this program, saturation is much more harsh compared to Affinity. So you don't have to use even as much as we did in there. I did 10 and 5. I think I'm going to go down to maybe 8 and try 4. Maybe a little less, and maybe a little less. Okay. And sharpness. Now, this is definitely not as strong as the clarifying tool in Affinity. I like going all the way up. It'll sharpen the pixels a lot more when you are zoomed in or when you blow up the photo. But typically I don't go to 100. I might stick to around 90. Radius and stuff, no big deal. We'll leave that where it's at. Noise reduction. This, it might help with some of the photos. We're not going to bother with it today. Optics would be my lens and possibly my camera. Yeah, it kind of does a little bit of fixing any of that, but we could do the autos and just click on those and let's see. Kind of works. No big deal. We'll leave that. And transform. No reason to do that. We don't have any big issues with the photo being distorted or anything. We didn't have like a fisheye lens or anything that made this necessary, so we're good. And that is it. And we'll do a before and an after the photo. So before, after, and now let's do a side by side with the two photos that we edited. All right, here are our photos side by side. On the left is Affinity photos, and on the right is Neo's. Overall, I kind of like them both. The detail in the clouds. In this section, it looks really good. However, in this section, I prefer Neo rather than Affinity. Affinity doesn't have as much detail in that section. The detail within the trees is a little distracting. It's a little much, but it's a nice starting point. I would have probably bumped up the detail a little bit with the trees in Neo's. But side by side, they both have their benefits. They both are a good starting point. And that's the point with editing raw files. It's giving you a good starting point once you get all the detail that you possibly can from the photos and adjust things the way you want. Then you can move into the full version of the software or a different program and start editing and tweaking the photos how you would like. So overall, I like both of them for different reasons, and they both give me a good starting point. So it just really depends on my mood for the day, which program I probably would choose. Today I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards Affinity Photo, and then it also depends on what style you're going for. Affinity is more like using Photoshop, and Neo is more like using Lightroom. So I like both programs because they're standalone licensing for the most part. All companies are trying to make money, so obviously they're going to try to sell you stuff here and there. Some of them do have subscriptions they're like pushing. I stay away from the subscriptions just because it's an added expense that to me is pointless. So anyways, those are the two programs. I hope the video is helpful or entertaining in some way. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.